Was that easy to guess?
We have a couple gardening clubs.
Yes. Shh, don't let the word out. Okay, and so the source of the flowers come from her garden also. She collects them and presses them to dry organically, chemical and dye-free. So creating these flower portraits and other floral images is a passion of hers. She actually told me the other day she just did a presentation for a garden club. Which garden club was that?
Fairview Park.
Fairview Park.
Where I live.
Mm-hmm. And so each bloom season, she finds new inspirations and discoveries with the changes of the flowers, I'm sure, and the colors and the shapes. And so petals, stems, and buds make up a large part of the artwork that you will see her demonstrate, and then also what she has on display. So please welcome Nada Talevska.
Well, thank you for having me, and gardeners, this is how it started about 4 years ago for me. I retired, actually left early, and always been a gardener, fostered by my parents. Both loved gardening, and you know, it was during times like this, well, not so much March, but come November, December, January, everything's so bare. I'd look out into in the backyard, and it's no color, there's nothing, and I miss my garden. So that's how it all started. I picked some fall season, end of season blooms 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, and made a collage for a family member who was having a kind of a tough time. Mailed it to her. You know, people that saw it said, "Oh, I like that." Well, and I enjoyed doing it. So 4 years ago, I opened my Etsy store. So there's my business card and bio cards. I saw a lot of talk about bios. Bio card is there. My Etsy store is there. Facebook, Instagram. I've got about, at least on Facebook, about 2,000 followers. So, you know, it's been a fun journey. So I'm here to show you what I know, and feel free to ask questions, whether you ask them, you know, at the moment or when you think about it as I'm creating the art, you know, just ask away. So it starts with flowers. And you want to, if you're going to press, you want to pick them when they're at their peak. Don't pick them first thing in the morning. They need to be dry. If there's any dew on there, you know, the whole idea with pressing is to remove the moisture from the flowers. So they have to be dry. And these little guys I picked late this afternoon. It had rained. I normally wouldn't have gone out on a day like this to pick them. So you start with the flowers, fresh, and if you don't have a flower press like this one, which my husband was more than happy to make several for me, this is simply plywood and lug nuts and some bolts, cheaply made. And if you don't know whether you're going to like doing this, books. You did it as a child, I'm sure many of you, I know I did. You find a nice heavy book, but what you can't do in a book is, it can't be a book that has laminated pages. It's got to be real paper, and I wouldn't recommend putting them directly between the pages, because you'll ruin your book, as the colors will seep out. So if you've got newspaper, use newspaper. The print will not transfer, photos won't transfer, but the press itself, you basically layer cardboard and paper. You can get fancy paper, You know, a lot of people use like watercolor paper because it's more absorbent, but it's also expensive, so I don't use it either. This is copier paper. Or even better, if anybody still gets a newspaper these days, somebody gifted these to me, and I find that I'm using them all the time. A gallery owner in Avon had a friend who said, you know, my mom passed away and I found all these pressed flowers. So she called me and said, do you want them? They're really old, 40 years old to be.
How many?
40.
40 years old.
So like this, let's see if I can find this is the Dear Abby. So some of these, like Plain Dealer or the Youngstown paper, they're from 1975, you know, 76. So she had the flowers nested in here. She made little books. So if things got, you know, blotchy or whatever, you just tear off a page, and newspaper's very absorbent. So that's a trick. So what we're going to do is first I will show you some of the flowers that have been sitting in here. These are sulfur cosmos. Orange, if you have them in your garden, they're prolific. They self-seed. Black-eyed Susans.
Can I pass that and show it?
Sure.
I'll hold it.
Yeah, by all means.
How do you get them to look so beautifully arranged, like, yeah.
Well, I'll show you as I'll demonstrate
Yeah.
some of these and cover some of those tricks. These are rose petals.
Oh my goodness.
It's, and roses, I love them, but you pretty much have to do it like this because they're very thick. They have a lot of moisture, and if you try to press them whole, they will mold. No matter what you do, eventually they're mold. But what you can do is, like, if you have knockout roses, those are fairly small, they're thin. The bigger roses, you pull some off the back. Just reduce the number of petals that you're pressing. And a lot of times that works. So what I've got here is some scented geranium. And the key, you know, and I made this mistake because I was in a hurry. Aren't we all in a hurry with everything? The first set of flowers that I pressed, I think I got from the store, Alstroemeria. They're prolific, right? I just threw them in a book, and, well, you kind of have to arrange them because they came out, they dried, but they didn't look very pretty. So when you're making an arrangement or deciding what to press, so this is a Lenten rose, a hellebore, and this one had bloomed out. So if you notice, the center is kind of gone versus this one that still has its center. So this is it's for the most part pretty flat. Remove as much and cuticle scissors is usually what I can use, but cut the stem as much as you can and arrange it. You know, it once. So this one, although if you're familiar with hellebores, this center is standing straight up. I can do one of two things. I can cut it. It won't look exactly the same. And I'll leave that in the press as well. and then I can press it like this, or I can take the petals off. And they don't always cooperate. You can use the scissors. If you've got nails, that works. And this, I'm not gonna throw away the center, because look at that. It's gonna come out. It's gonna come out nicely. And then you take several layers of paper. So if you're doing this in a book, protect both sides of your book. And I also learned this the hard way because my husband bought me a signed edition of a cookbook of a chef that we follow. He wasn't real happy with me because I didn't use the papers. So as you do this, you know, some of the petals will want to raise up. And you want to layer cardboard every few of these. So we'll now do a daffodil. And daffodils press well, but you know, the colors come out nice, but it's hard to press like this. So you can press it laying down on its side, or what I've also done is trim this little guy. Still looks like a daffodil, but it's going to lay flat a little easier. And as you're trimming the back, be cognizant of what flower you're using. If you try to do this to a marigold, guess what happens? All the petals come out, right? Same with carnations. So it doesn't work with everything, but in this case, it will.
Did you learn the hard way on some of that?
Oh yeah, trial and error. And I'll save the little scraps as well, because if you look at, you know, like some of, like this collage, you sometimes need a rectangular shape. You need, you know, different filler to help complete a particular section.
No.
Closer? Sure. All right. Up close and personal.
That's a little better. We didn't want the guests to carry the table.
Okay, so,
That's good.
and the other thing that I learned along the way was I was only pressing petals or just the flowers. Well, you need leaves too. So, and you need buds. This will press well, and you can either take the leaves apart, or I like the way this looks. And you know, you can stage them as much as you want, but nature is nature, and it knows better than we do. So it'll come out okay. This guy wilted, so normally I wouldn't press him, but for the purposes of the demo, I will. Although I will say, even, you know, depending on the flower, and I'll cut just a little bit of this guy. So now, we have to position them the way we want them to come out. sometimes it helps if you have them all facing the same direction. That way, if you're going to, when you cover them, they're all going in the same direction. And we'll stop there with this guy.
How many presses like that do you own?
I think I have 3 or 4,
Oh, okay.
but,
You can layer several layers in one press.
oh yeah, you can,
All the way up to
you
the
can
top
fill
of
it
the
up.
lug nuts.
You have to check on it. If you're doing it this way, you have to check the papers and change out the papers every couple of days.
Ah,
So it's labor intensive, but I'll show you an easier way or a faster way in a minute. So the lug nuts go in and you tighten this pretty tight, but don't over tighten them because that'll crush the pedals. So, and then as you're checking on the paper, every few days, you'll find as things press, you can tighten a little more because it flattens, they flatten out. So that's the traditional old way of doing things. And you know, somebody had to find a faster way to do this, because that will take anywhere from 2 weeks to maybe 6 weeks, depending on the flower. You know, pansies, a week. And they press beautifully, the color's great. The roses, some of the thicker flowers, yeah. And you leave them in there even if they feel dry, because if you saw these, they're like paper, but you have to make sure the moisture is out. Otherwise, that's when they start to mold. So this is the microfleur. And you pay about $60 for this baby.
The microfleur.
Microfleur.
Fleur for flower.
You got it.
like
Can we see that again? Francais.
Fleur, yep. So those presses you can make with scraps, you know, or I've heard people go to the dollar store, get some cutting boards, drill the holes, put the lug nuts in, you know, you're under $10, $15. But they sell, people out there are selling them for $50, $60. I saw a bigger one that was $140. I love my flowers, but
Does your husband charge to make them?
I don't know. Do you charge to make them? So this
We're
is,
going to business selling them.
yeah.
Right.
Well, the ones that sell for that price are prettier looking than that. I will say
We don't
that.
need credit, that's, you know.
Yeah.
Just a push
So the microfleur press is basically, you get that with these 2 plastic plates. And these, and you can see mine's been well used, even though these have been washed over the year. These are like thick wool squares. And it comes with 2 pieces of cotton like this. I went to Joann Fabrics, bought a yard or 2 of muslin, cut them. So now I have extras of these. So while one of these is pressing in the microwave, I'm staging the other. So as soon as I take one out, I can put one in.
Micro means not small, but microwave.
Microwave, yes,
Would you
ma'am.
cook it?
Pardon me?
You cook it?
Yep. Yep. So you do the same thing. And I would say try not to mix your flowers on one plate because they dry at different stages. So if you need to microwave one you gotta take the one that's already dry, take that out, otherwise it'll burn. So same process, you line them up, cover it with the other piece of cloth. Put the clips in and throw it in the microwave. 15 to 30 seconds at a time.
Well, the next question, have you written a recipe book for each flower in the jar?
I have not, and I don't know of anybody that has. But you start out with, 20, 30-second bursts, and when you open this up, you're gonna need a paper towel or a towel, because the moisture ends up on here. So this will be wet. So you wipe that off. You can wipe this off. Same thing. And you can check on your flower. And you will get a sense after doing it a few times of whether or not it has, whether it's dried or it needs another 15 seconds. I find that most anything needs 3 maybe at a minimum, three bursts of 30 seconds. And you'll if you try it this way, you'll find you'll burn some. So don't pick your best flower and try it for the first time. Try it with your foliage and something that's plentiful. So you do that, and then once they come out of here, because they may feel dry, but I'm never 100% certain whether or not they're completely dry. So after they come out, and literally you're done in a few minutes. So you're not checking on the paper, you're not doing any of that. You're not retightening. So what I do then is, if you saw the newspaper, I put them inside or put them back in, and then just put them under a book or a weight. Actually, I have I think it's a 5-pound and a 10-pound, the weights. And I have a book. The book goes on top, and then the weight on top of that. Because if you leave it exposed to the air, it'll start to shrivel up. It'll start getting brittle. So that is our microwave press.
What's the largest piece that you have created?
Piece of art?
Yes, piece of art with the flowers.
Let's see, I just finished one that was, it was a collage, a 20 by 20, 20 inches by 20 inches. And then I did a custom piece of a female. It was the back side of a female with long flowy hair. And that was, I think, 20 by 24. She wanted it for her powder room. And it turned out beautifully. So
how long does a piece keep that's got these pressed flowers in them?
Well,
What's
just
the
like
lifetime of your art, in other words?
like the flowers that I got that were 40 years old, some of them were still viable.
Wow.
I still was able to use them. Did they lose their vibrancy? Yes, it's nature, and you have to be okay with it aging and changing. Just like we age, it doesn't mean we look bad. We just look different, right? So if you keep it out of direct sunlight, keep it out of humid areas, no bathrooms unless it's a powder room. And actually, I had a couple at one of my shows that had 2 or 3 pieces picked out, and they were going to arrange them in their bathroom. And I heard them talking. I said, "Oh, You can't. I mean, if you want them to, you know, to survive, you don't want to introduce humidity and direct sunlight. So the more sunlight in the room or hitting the piece, then they'll fade that much faster. So there's, I guess, a resurgence in the past decade or so, maybe longer, maybe less, I don't know. I've only been doing this for 4 years. A lot of the art that I see is done between 2 panes of glass. And I think I did some small pieces just to try it, but I think it's the kiss of death. You've got light hitting it from all sides, so it may look great, but I don't know that it survives. It's, you know, their life is shortened. So, this is my inventory of flowers.
Oh my God.
Close to 200.
You have that many in
How
your
many
yard?
did you say?
Well, most of these are from my garden, but some of them, you know, we go on vacation and I carry a little book with me. So I brought some, we were in Palm Springs last October, I brought some bougainvillea back and some trumpet flowers, things that were in bloom at our rental, and after I got permission, obviously, from the owner. So some of the stuff is from vacations. Some I collect a couple of things from the Metro Park. But
Borrowed a few things?
mostly leaves and some branches. But yeah,
How many did you say are on your inventory?
I think this list is 170, but what's not included in here, these are all in drawers in a rolling cart that has 20 drawers,
Wow.
and each drawer has multiples in there of these. So they're in cellophane and some hard paper or cardstock. So it doesn't include, as I ran out of room, I couldn't open some of the drawers, so I bought like a carrying case that you see at Mark's if you're a crafter of any kind. You've seen these, so I've got 2 or 3 of those.
So your husband has no problem shopping for you for a special gift? Is it
Well,
always flowers?
Flowers, you can always bring flowers, but as far as my instruments, nah, that's a personal thing.
Right.
You gotta do it yourself.
But the flowers would be nice, huh?
Yes, definitely. Well, you have to think of it. You haven't bought me any flowers.
I didn't mean to call.
Oh, Xenia, you did it now. Let me see if there was anything. So as far as storage, you want to keep them flat. Yeah. And I guess,
What's the most exotic flower you did, or what's the hardest?
well, roses are hard.
What about something like an iris? Does that work?
Mhm. Yep. I've got, you know, the little baby irises work great. They don't always, the colors for some of these, like if you're going to do primrose, I saw some popping out this morning. The colors change. I've got this beautiful red, but it comes out purple. So the color sometimes just changes. Irises.
Have you ever tried painting on the flower?
There are artists that do this that will use alcohol ink to amend the color, or pan pastels, and I don't use them because they don't look as natural to me, no matter how good they are with, you know, their pan pastels. It's not the color of the flower, it's not nature, and that's the whole idea. for me anyway.
So how do you dry the branches? Just let them air dry? Branches, you said you do branches as well?
Just little branches.
branches,
I
tiny
showed someone, this is Twiggy.
Oh,
She was, I think, my second one. The
Can we
second.
pass her around?
Sure. This is, I'll start here. She was the second piece that I did, and my husband and I were walking in the Metro Park, and I noticed it was a shrub. I noticed the branch, and it had interesting points and little seeds, so I took a sample, and Miss Twiggy was born. She was difficult because you don't,
my goodness.
you know, you can dry them, but at the same time, they're not exactly flat.
Wow.
What do you use to put your flowers on your artwork? How do you attach them?
PPA glue.
What is that?
PPA, perfect paper adhesive. There are others. I started out with Mod Podge, the matte, but I found that anywhere that it touched the paper, you can see that it left a residue. You could see a sheen, even in the matte. So this has worked perfectly. If you look closely at any of those, some of the glue got on the paper where there isn't a flower, and you never know that it was there. So something like this will cost you about $12.
And you get that at what?
Amazon. Mhm.
It's called PPA Perfectly something.
Perfect paper adhesive. If you just do PPA, I'm good, thanks. So I started an art piece, and the idea is to do some composition here. I don't know the name of this. Actually, I bought a bouquet at Giant Eagle when I did the demo for our Fairview Park Garden Club, and they had these in the bouquet. It was just a filler flower, and I just absolutely love it. So I think I've got the name of it on my phone somewhere because I want to grow some. It pressed beautifully, and you know the design. You know, we can talk a little bit about the design, but before I do, brushes. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. You'll forget them with glue on them. You'll throw them out. So Dollar Tree, you get a batch. Your X-Acto knife. And if you're going to, I would splurge a little bit on tweezers because you need kind of different kinds. And if you try to pick some of this stuff up, you just can't. Things will break. So those are the supplies. Scissors, your adhesive, and I'm gonna take.
How many tweezers do you have there? 3, please? 3?
I have 3 that I brought. I think I've got half a dozen that are in rotation right now. So design, you can do, you know, whatever moves you, and that's kind of the key word, movement. I like pieces that have movement. I've seen art where you just see stuff pasted. It's nice, they are flowers, but you know, your eye doesn't go anywhere. And the idea for me is, you know, it's got some movement. So now I'm gonna, I have not done this before, I will have you know.
Does anybody need to move from the back to see closer?
Yeah, by all means, if you wanna get closer or come over to the side, you
Bring your
can.
chair over there. Anybody help move the chair? You got your hot
after you glue this, you need to let it cure to some extent. And sometimes something is stubborn and it won't lay down. So you put weight on it, and you don't want to put it directly on the flower. So this, and actually I use this to paint the glue on the flower as well.
I missed what paper that is.
Just parchment paper, baking paper. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Here,
Pick out some color.
with me.
Sit down.
No, you good. You good.
One of mine.
Oh, okay.
I
I'ma see you
usually
with the
sit
video
on
anyway.
a stool that kind of sits up a little bit,
Yeah.
but this is good.
Aaron, do you have?
No, we're good.
And I put glue in a little tub there,
I'm feeling this is on the top.
just so I have something I can reseal it with. So if I have to walk away for, an hour because something's gluing or, being pressed down, this will keep. So, let's see what we got. Oh, and here's a pressed of the, and this is probably a couple of years old. So it's still green. Is it as green as that? No, but so this is a little, I think I'm checking it. I'm not sure what this is.
In a garden club, we have to know what they
So as far as design, I started this, I got my movement going, and now it's, don't want it here, not yet, because it's too many yellows. Maybe here. We'll leave it there and see what we think of it. Oh, and zinnias can be kind of tough to weigh down, but if you peel the petals off and open up the stem, this is what it looks like. Isn't that pretty?
What is it?
A zinnia.
Not rosinha, zinnia.
You have two flower names,
Right,
flowers
right.
in your name, Rose and Cynthia. Yeah.
That was my mother's intentions.
Was it?
Yeah.
She was a flower lover.
So that's that. I'm gonna try it over here. I think I like that. And if it just doesn't sit right with you, it probably is the wrong place for it. So it's simply preference.
And the paper you're using to adhere your composition on, is that?
It is, you could use, this is Bristol, Strathmore Bristol paper. So it's fairly thick.
Smooth.
And this is smooth, but I've used watercolor paper too. So, the texture sometimes is nice. So it's either. If you want.
Now, when you actually create these, do you prefer standing or sitting, or it doesn't make a difference?
A little of both, if it's a big piece, then I'm hunched over, and I will tell you that an hour is my limit. Then I have to stop, either sit down or take a break or whatever.
And I've learned that when I walk into not a studio, I always say, are these glued or are these loose? Because if I just move too quick,
Oh, wow.
And let me tell you, I find petals everywhere. Me, you know, they
hardened up.
they adhere to my clothes, they,
Can your move, can the way your move, how you feeling, can sometimes that dictate where your flowers go? Like if you feel in a certain kind of way that day?
not so much the placement of it, but more about my patience. You know, if I'm having a rough day or I'm stressed about something, then I probably won't be as patient and, yeah.
Nada, can you hold up that golden yellow
Yeah, that's
flower?
gorgeous.
This is a dahlia. And you wouldn't think you could press a dahlia as thick as it is. And this was done mostly in the microwave. And, you know, partially in the microwave, it takes the initial moisture out and then it goes in the press. But yeah, and this one too, this is a dahlia too, which, I don't know, I'll take tips, gardeners. Have not been able to successfully overwinter dahlia tubers. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but
They're picky.
I am too, but
All those tubers are picky.
They are. Yeah. And I so wanted these to survive. So what do you think of what I just? Yeah, I think I do too. I want to continue my movement there, if I can.
How long does it take to strangle flowers out, those leaves and flowers?
You know, it just varies. It varies. Each one can be very different. Like these guys press fairly quickly, but this is, I think this is from stock. It didn't flower, so I'm not sure what it was, and these dried very quickly. So, you know, couple 3 weeks at best. So for your competition in August, don't think you can start saving and pressing, you know, July 28th. Start as soon as you got flowers. Okay, I think I like that.
Now, are you looking at a negative space in the sense of the white, as one would with painting?
Yep. They're, you know, they're touching or they're not.
Okay. And you remember what's glued and what isn't?
Oh, gosh, yeah. That's why you know, I've started to get better about, started getting better about gluing as I go. And,
So the whole thing has to be coated on the back?
yeah, I do. Now, there are people out there that do this, you know, for a living. This, for me, is, you know, it's, I always said that, you know, this is a hobby that can sustain itself. So long as it can sustain itself and it's not costing me a ton of money, you know, I'm selling and making enough to enjoy doing it. But there's people that do this for money. And, you know, they use a little toothpick of glue.
What's the most expensive piece that you have sold on Etsy or elsewhere?
Actually, I did a wedding. I think it was $400. That is very big these days, which, you know, it's really a great idea. Wedding bouquets, instead of throwing them in the trash after they shrivel up, you get it to somebody that does this, and
great keepsake, really.
Yeah. And actually, some of the flowers that have, that are, I will also put some on top. If we think that they're going to, you know, like the center, sometimes, you know, the center, even if it's dry, you know, the residue will come off. So you put some on top, and that way you preserve the whole thing.
So now a totally white bouquet, you'd have to put on a colored background like that?
I stayed away from doing wedding bouquets because, you know, I just wasn't confident enough. And it's such a personal and meaningful thing for somebody. And, you know, I'm not going to screw up somebody's bouquet. So I had some inquiries, and, you know, I always turned them down. But I had some art in a local shop, and they referred a friend of theirs. They did, that had gotten married and wanted to preserve. And when you're doing this, start in the center and go out. Otherwise, you'll run into getting caught in some of the petals. So this bride calls me and said, you know, will you do one for me? I'm like, you know, I really haven't. And, you know, it's so, flowers can be so unpredictable. You can press something and it's great one time, and the next time it, you know, the moisture in the air and, you know, the length the flower was out of the water, or, you know, since it was picked, there's many factors. But
Now you're brushing out to the edges and over, and you're not worried about getting any glue on the front side of that?
no,
No residue?
no, it doesn't matter. So this girl comes, I said, all right, you know, I'll do it, send me a picture, let me see it first. All white. I said, oh man, I really, and those are the hardest, you know, they're the hardest to maintain the color because they like to brown.
But white in general, even if not a wedding bouquet, you'd have to put it on something dark?
I did hers on a gray, a fairly dark gray background, because we had greenery, she had eucalyptus, and different whites. And for her, I said, all right, you know, this is the first one that I have agreed to do. I'll do this. Oh, and the other thing was, her wedding was a week before. So I'm like, you know, I really can't guarantee you anything, because, you know, half of it will wilted, and you can see, those of you that can't see, I'm getting some on the paper.
Yeah.
And this is the glue that
Doesn't show.
Once it dries, you won't see it. So the petals that, you know, are like wanting to raise up, I'm giving them a little help.
Did you have to use some type of preservative on the white petals?
You know,
Nothing additional?
Nothing additional. I did tell her though, okay, I required a deposit for the work. And I said, I'll do this. You know, I tried to talk her out of it actually. And she said, no, I want it. I'm like, okay, I will. And then you gotta remember which side you want to glue. If you're looking for a particular angle for that to go in. So I said, you know, snapdragons. She said, I grew them. That's what we use for our little centerpieces. I'll bring you fresh flowers from the garden. Okay. So, and she married, her husband was from, from Nepal, I think. And marigolds play a significant part in their culture. So she'd like, do whatever you want. She gave me carte blanche. So we decided, I asked her about a mandala. We did a mandala and then 2 accompanying pieces that were just collages. And those are the best brides when they're not, you know, the best customer, I should say. She didn't ask to see 10 drafts. She pretty much just gave me carte blanche. And as you can imagine, I was nervous as all get out until she, you know, to see her reaction when she came to pick them up. And she sent me pictures. They were for her bedroom. They were using them as like over their bed. And she was pleased. If she's
How do you
pleased.
recommend, you don't want them under glass? You want glass touching them?
Oh yeah, that's what those are. They're
Then
under
you-
glass.
then you do, okay, I didn't know if you needed airspace, okay.
No, well, you know, and I've done these over the last 4 years, and the first one that I did, I didn't sell. It's, you know, it's at home, and it's under glass, and it's fine.
So there's no special framing.
No, I mean, ideally, if you can use UV glass, but the price point at which I sell these, you know, doesn't pay for that.
At least not glare also, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What, is plexiglass acceptable or not?
I have not used, the only plexiglass I used was, I did a piece for our first granddaughter, and we did plexiglass just in case it fell off, you know. Didn't want her to be exposed to that, and it's still in her bedroom, you know, what, 8 years later, so it looks okay.
Do you ever have to use a magnifying glass for for really small little pieces?
Not yet. Not yet. And the, as you can see, I took my glasses off. I can see close, I can't see far. So in order for me to do close-up work, I can't use, you know, so if you are doing this and, you know, you need reading glasses, or you might need some magnification, but I don't know if I call myself blessed or cursed. I can't see far.
How long does it take that glue to dry? Just like you put the paper on with a little bit of weight.
Just so the
Not gonna
petals will,
stick.
so the petals will sit. That's why I use the baking, because
It won't adhere as much.
it doesn't, you know, unless I slather the top with glue, it won't stick.
So it takes a lot of patience.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. You can't hurry it along.
And the flower.
Now, if you decided you wanted to move something, can you?
Only if you can replace it with something bigger, because it won't completely come on. And actually, you know, full disclosure in that not everything in the end, you know, so I'll take the little tape off. I didn't use the tape with that 20 by 20 that I did. And I kind of had little guidelines, you know, guides. I framed it and the borders weren't even. probably nobody else would have noticed it, but I noticed it and it bugged me, so, took it out of the frame. It sat there for a week or so, and just, at the end of last week, I took it and, added to it, so it was completely, yeah. So sometimes it does its own thing. Sometimes
I'm sorry, what is this green? Is it just paper?
it's washi tape that will just come out.
Okay, what kind of tape is it?
Washi,
Washi.
washi, with an I at the end, I think.
Yeah.
W-A-S-H-I.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
You have 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay. So, let's see, do you think I glued everything that I touched? We'll find out. Okay, yeah. All right.
Hey, good
So,
memory.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
so obviously,
On that side.
it has a lot to go. And once you get kind of the bigger pieces, so this is one of those hellebores from last year. Yeah, gorgeous. If you're doing, Lenten rose, they start blooming like in February. The buds come out. So if you're doing a collage, don't be afraid to cut things in half. So I could cut this and it looks like it's coming from the bottom. So I would do that. The other thing I want to mention is the girls. So that's what I started doing first, is the girls. And you saw Twiggy, right? That got passed around. That was the extent of my drawing capabilities when I started 4 years ago. Was line, that's it. So the hair was plant material, eyelashes. You know, I've used time for eyelashes.
Wow.
Yeah. The hair, obviously, eyebrows, same. The nose, really, you just gotta draw the nose.
But who's printing these? Are you printing them?
Yeah.
At home?
Oh, no, I send them out. So that was Twiggy. And all I gotta say is, and I know I'm in a room of artists, but I graduated. So it was, as most all of you, you keep working it. I didn't take classes. I followed a few people on YouTube that were artists, but they don't show it in real time, so you're like, oh, okay. But you learn some things, and I actually I decided which one of those people that I would look at their videos, which one I liked the most, and I bought one of her packages. So you get to see her draw in real time, and the videos are accessible to you, forever, supposedly. So that is, I think it was maybe, that was less than $200. So I didn't think I had that creative gene, and I found it. And I give credit in part to leaving work. Once, if you're working every day and going to a stressful job, people demanding, and you're just like, got all that noise in your head. And sometimes when you just remove the noise, new stuff comes in. And, oh, absolutely, absolutely.
But I have to say, you can craft an absolutely gorgeous spreadsheet.
Yeah, he makes fun of my, one thing that I left the corporate job. I was a project manager for 42 years. So it didn't lend itself to this type of creativity. Sometimes you had to be creative with the budget, with the project timelines and this and that. I kept the spreadsheets. I mean, how else, you gotta stay organized, because if you have all the flowers, but you can't find what you want, what good is it? Yeah.
Right.
So,
Congratulations.
I think I'm at the end of my time, so any other questions that anybody's been thinking about?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Did I understand you correctly when you said you had like drawers of these photos?
So you can see some of these, there's
taking a
number
picture and
11,
showing us
number 1, number 6, number 2, number 1. So I open a drawer and number 1 has probably 10 of these.
That's 10 of that particular flower?
No, just 10 different ones.
10
So
different.
that's what the spreadsheet is to tell me alphabetically what drawer it's in. And then I have it sorted by drawer, so I know what's in a drawer. And then I have another one, so see, this is where the project manager comes out. The third one is by colors. So if I'm looking for a particular color, I can sort it. So, I mean, how great is that? How great is that?
And the flower must be dry. Must be dry.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
By all means, flower
Yeah.
dry.
Dry. Totally, completely. If you think it's dry, but you're like, it's been 3 weeks, give it another week. Yeah. Is another question?
Any other final questions? Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Nada. Very informative and enlightening.
And,
Beautiful flowers.
do you have the garden group, do you have a Facebook page?
Yes.
I hope you're going to post some of your creations that you do in August, because I would love to see them. And it's, what is it, Lakeshore?
Lakeshore Garden Club.
Okay.
The flower show is the first weekend of August.
Okay.
But if I have your email, I can send you a flyer.
Yep, please do. I'm in Fairview Park.
Okay, everyone, please enjoy the refreshments. Okay?
I'm gonna be putting some of this stuff away, so if any questions come up while I'm here,
And everyone, before you leave, if you could help and fold up the chair and put it back on the rack, that would be helpful.
these are
Oh, okay.